The skies over the South China Sea and the East China Sea have become increasingly tense as Chinese military aircraft and U.S. military planes operate in close proximity. These encounters have sometimes come perilously close to causing collisions, raising serious concerns about safety, military strategy, and international diplomacy. In this narrative, we'll explore what could happen if such a collision were to occur, the potential reactions, and examine two real-life incidents: the unprofessional intercept of a US B-52 over the South China Sea, and a PLA fighter jet's risky intercept against a lawfully operating US asset in the East China Sea. What happens if a collision occurs? If a collision were to occur between a Chinese aircraft and a US plane, the consequences could be dire, not just for the immediate loss of life and equipment, but for the broader geopolitical implications. Here are the potential outcomes. The most immediate and tragic consequence would be the potential loss of life. Both aircraft could suffer catastrophic damage, leading to the deaths of pilots and crew members. The destruction of expensive military equipment would also be significant. Both nations would likely launch extensive search and rescue operations. These efforts could be complicated by the location of the incident, especially if it occurs over contested waters. Both countries would likely elevate their military readiness levels. The U.S. might deploy additional assets to the region to ensure the safety of its forces, while China might bolster its air and naval presence. There's a risk of immediate retaliatory actions. If either side perceives the collision as an intentional act or a grossly negligent one, it could lead to military engagements ranging from skirmishes to broader conflict. Diplomatic relations between the U.S. and China would likely suffer. Accusations and counter-accusations would fly, each side blaming the other for the incident. Other nations, particularly those in the Asia-Pacific region, might get involved diplomatically, urging restraint and offering to mediate. Given the significant role both nations play in the global economy, markets might react negatively to the increased tensions, causing economic ripples worldwide. Both nations might revise their engagement rules and flight protocols to prevent future incidents. This could involve establishing clearer communication channels and conducting joint training exercises to manage encounters better. International bodies such as the United Nations might get involved, leading to new agreements or amendments to existing ones regarding airspace management and military encounters. Unprofessional intercept of US B-52 over South China Sea. One of the most notable incidents occurred in November 2015 when a US B-52 Stratofortress bomber was intercepted by Chinese military aircraft over the South China Sea. The U.S. was conducting a routine mission in international airspace, but the encounter quickly escalated due to the aggressive maneuvers of the Chinese pilots. The B-52 was flying over the South China Sea, a region with multiple overlapping territorial claims, including those by China, which considers much of the sea as its own, despite international law recognizing these waters as international. Chinese J-11 fighter jets approached the B-52 in an unprofessional manner, flying dangerously close. At one point, the Chinese aircraft were within 100 feet of the B-52, a dangerously close distance given the speeds and sizes of the aircraft involved. The U.S. pilots were forced to take evasive actions to avoid a collision. They maintained a professional demeanor, communicating their intentions clearly to avoid further escalation. The U.S. condemned the intercept as dangerous and unprofessional. The Pentagon lodged a formal complaint with the Chinese government, demanding an explanation and assurances that such incidents would not recur. China defended its actions, claiming the B-52 was conducting a provocative mission near its territory. Chinese officials asserted their right to defend what they consider their airspace. Following the incident, both nations increased their patrols in the region. The U.S. continued its freedom of navigation operations, while China stepped up its air and naval presence. The incident added strain to the already tense U.S.-China relations, particularly regarding South China Sea disputes. PLA fighter jets risky intercept in the East China Sea. Another significant incident occurred in April 2020 when a PLA fighter jet conducted a coercive and risky intercept of a U.S. reconnaissance aircraft in the East China Sea. The U.S. aircraft was lawfully operating in international airspace, monitoring regional activities. The U.S. reconnaissance aircraft was on a routine mission over the East China Sea, a region with significant strategic importance and frequent military activity. A PLA Su-27 fighter jet approached the U.S. aircraft, performing aggressive maneuvers. The Chinese jet flew within 50 feet of the U.S. plane, crossing its flight path and forcing the U.S. pilot to take immediate evasive action to avoid a collision. The U.S. crew attempted to communicate with the Chinese pilot, but the intercept was conducted without clear communication, adding to the danger of the situation. The U.S. military criticized the intercept as unsafe and unprofessional. High-level diplomatic channels were activated to address the incident, with the U.S. demanding that China adhere to international norms and standards of aviation safety. China claimed the intercept was necessary to protect its sovereignty, alleging that the U.S. aircraft was conducting surveillance near sensitive areas. Chinese officials reiterated their stance on defending their perceived territorial rights. The U.S. adjusted its operating procedures to enhance safety and reduce the risk of future incidents. This included altering flight paths and increasing surveillance of Chinese intercept activities. The incident influenced U.S. policy, leading to greater emphasis on maintaining a robust military presence in the region to counter Chinese assertiveness. It also prompted calls for international dialogue on aviation safety and military conduct. The near-miss incidents involving Chinese and U.S. aircraft underscore the high stakes and potential dangers of military operations in contested regions. These encounters highlight the need for clear communication, professional conduct, and adherence to international norms to prevent accidents that could escalate into broader conflicts. The unprofessional intercept of a U.S. B-52 over the South China Sea and the risky intercept of a U.S. reconnaissance aircraft in the East China Sea serve as cautionary tales, reminding us of the fragile balance that must be maintained in international airspace. As these real cases demonstrate, the potential for collision carries significant risks, not only for the immediate safety of the pilots involved, but also for international stability. Maintaining open lines of communication and mutual respect for international laws are crucial in preventing such incidents from leading to catastrophic outcomes. After hearing about these close calls, what do you think should be done to prevent such incidents in the future? Should there be stricter international regulations or more diplomatic efforts to resolve these tensions? Share your thoughts in the comments.